Today on the Wake Up, my guest is Mekka Okereke, and he is the general manager of the Google Play apps business. We work closely together at Google. I'm so excited for you to hear his insights on leading during disruptive times, on navigating cross-functional leadership versus single-function leadership. Mekka has so many incredible insights. He rarely does podcast interviews, so I'm delighted to have him today and for you to hear his insights. Thank you again for being here. I'm going to do a little intro and embarrass you for a second. Mekka is the general manager of the apps business on the Google Play Store, which is one of the world's largest digital marketplaces. Before Google, he was the lead for the Amazon App Store developer services business, also a very large marketplace. He's passionate about people and building inclusive and diverse teams. I can attest to that from my time working with Mekka. And he serves as a sponsor for several initiatives, including Google's Racial Equity PFG, Project Lifesaver, Tech Exchange, the Google Developer Academy, and the Computer Science Summer Institute. We're going to cover a few different topics. We're going to cover what it's like to be a general manager and that experience versus being a single function manager when you've done both. What it's like now to lead during this time of rapid change, AI acceleration, how you're navigating through that as a leader, how you're helping teams come together, and what you're excited about, what you're less excited about, and how you're navigating it all.
Cool.
Let's go. So we're going to start with a rapid fire, wake up themed. You have a big role as the general manager of the apps business on Play. How do you get going in the morning? What gets you up?
Well, I work out every morning. I lift a lot of weights, power lifter. So wake up early in the morning and sneak in before the gym gets too busy. Yeah, that's basically how I start every morning. And then I have kid duty, so I gotta help get little ones ready for school. That's pretty much how I start my day.
Love it. Do you listen to music when you work out? I'm curious.
Yes, I do, and I'm a strong believer that everyone has a strongest song, and it may not be what you think. I don't listen to a lot of rock music, but my strongest song is Dracula by Rob Zombie.
On the wake up note, what is an alarm moment you had as a leader about an assumption you were making that you had to change?
One of the things that I realized that I had to change was applying the same view of how people think about career progression versus work-life balance across across different sites. Bangalore is experiencing a lot of rapid change right now, and how people think about their careers, how willing they are to have meetings after hours is something that, it's something I'm very, very sensitive to people having to meet after hours very often, or having to meet too early very often. It just interferes with people's lives, especially someone with two young kids. And one thing that I noticed was that applying my view of those norms is very, very different to the time and the frenetic pace of change that Bangalore is undergoing right now. So I had to really rethink, how do you create the space for work-life balance and still give people the agency to choose how to prioritize that, and not create an environment that advantages people that don't have young children in their lives and school drop-offs.
When you look at other leaders across Google or outside of Google, what's one behavior or habit that you wish you could hit the snooze button on?
Speaking destructively and cynically about the future of AI. That's one that I don't think that is very constructive. And I think it makes people very rightfully concerned about the future of AI. A lot of the conversation, especially around creative people, is less around how can you help creative people, or how does this work out where their rights are respected, and more like, well, we're not going to need creative people anymore. Computers will do all the drawings and this, that, and the other. First of all, that's not true. Computers aren't going to do all the drawings. It really comes down to, do you believe that the best novel that the human species will ever produce has already been written, or do you believe it will be written at some point in the future? Like, I'm in the camp that the best novel written by human will be written at some point in the future. So that means that author has to exist as a career, which means that we should support writers, which means that all the things that we build should go towards making life easier, better, helping creative people with the types of problems they have. But I feel there's a lot of folks who are like, no, we're not going to need authors anymore. And, this, that, and the other. And I mean, all it does is it makes it, if I was a writer, it would make me dig in my heels, And I feel that that's not a constructive, it's not a constructive way forward.
Totally. So you've been a general manager now of the apps business on Google Play, and at Amazon, you were also leading an app store division. But you've also served as an engineering lead and kind of single function lead. How have you had to shift your leadership style and any kind of frameworks you use or principles accordingly, depending on whether you're leading a cross-functional team versus a single function team?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, different job ladders have different cultural norms and how they tend to operate. And when you come to a GM role, most people come to a GM role from one of the other functions, right? You come to a GM role from engineering leadership. You come to a GM role from product leadership, from UX leadership. You can come from it from business leadership, a whole bunch of different ways. But when you enter that role, we're all victims of the reference system that we came up in. And so a GM who came from a position as an engineering director, that strength can oftentimes be a weakness because it gives you a bit of a myopic view of any problem that you're presented. And so one of the things that I did is I was very intentional when, I've done GM roles a couple of different times. When I step into a GM type role from an engineering leadership type role, I make sure to very explicitly hand over the engineering leadership duties to someone else and not make engineering calls for a pretty significant period of time. In this case, it was about 6 months. And the reason I do that is because it creates the space for me to get deep on all of the other functions and to see all of these problems presented from the other side. So something I teach most of my mentees, most of my leads that come up is how to hire someone for skills that you don't have. How does a technical startup founder hire a director of product? How do you hire a a head of design? And so a lot of that involves listening and understanding the outcomes and understanding what is common about leadership across all of the different functions. And how do you recognize other types of smart? And so that was sort of like the most important part for me when transitioning to this role. And I think they kind of gave this role to me because, you and I, we've been working on this type of stuff for quite a long time. I love the cross-functional projects. Less interested in problems that you can solve just strictly by engineering, or problems that you can solve just through product or just through UX. I'm much more interested in the types of problems that are complex interdisciplinary problems that you really need lots of different types of smart and lots of different types of perspectives to solve. And so that's something that I really kind of leaned into with this role and, having fun with it. It's working.
Absolutely. I always found when we were working together, you had such a talent that not a lot of leaders are able to do easily to openly say when you're not the expert in the room and you defer to somebody else, which I think it does take quite a lot of your own clarity, your own confidence to be able to do that. I'm curious now, especially with so much pressure to move quickly with the pace of AI and just how things are changing at Google. How do you keep that momentum going in the same direction while not being the person making every decision?
So one of the things that I look at is when we talk about everyone wants velocity, velocity, velocity. Everyone wants organizations to move quicker, ship faster, all the rest of these fun things. And the cool thing is that the delay in terms of shipping is very rarely, or at least at Google, is very rarely an engineering delay. It's very rarely we didn't write the code fast enough. If only we had typed faster. A lot of times the delay is caused by delay of decisions. Decisions take too long. And let's get our smartest people, let's get people who are good at leading and let's get them into positions of leadership so they can make good decisions for us. But when I look at my organization, if there's 10 decisions that need to get made and I have to make all 10 of those decisions, then those have to come to some meeting, some forum, people do a bunch of work, they present this information, and then I make some call. And I might go 10 for 10. I don't, but let's suppose I go 10 for 10. I'm perfect with my decision making and I get 10 decisions made in a given period of time. Let's call it a month. Well, what if those 10 decisions didn't have to come to me? What if What if people were able to make those decisions further down in the organization? What if we could get 100 decisions made in that same period of time? But well, maybe we're not, as great as the all powerful and all knowing Oz, right? Like what if we only bat 90%, but we get 90 good decisions and 10 not so good ones? Well, is that better or worse? Well, really, it depends on how bad were those 10 decisions and could we cauterize the damage, right? Are we good at having those decisions be things where we understand very well if those decisions are not correct, how we don't, they're not catastrophic. Okay, what if we could get 900 good decisions and 100 bad ones, or even 800 good decisions and 200 bad ones? Real velocity comes from people being empowered to make those decisions at a position that is more proximate to where the work is actually being done. A decision in and of itself is not valuable. What's valuable is what was the rubric used to make that decision? What was the mental model that took the inputs and came out with that decision? And the reason that's important is because then that becomes repeatable, and then that rubric itself becomes something that we can have conversations about, we can disagree with, and it becomes things where people can disagree with me when I'm not in the room, right? People could say, hey, in this situation, I know how his brain works. He would say this. He's wrong, okay? But he say this because this situation is different. Maybe we should change the rubric, right? And so this is something that helps as we're trying to transition to this AI era. This is something that helped when people are transitioning from the web to the mobile era. This is something that helps when you are transitioning from brick and mortar to web. It doesn't matter the era of technology that we're talking about. Having the skill of being able to make decisions quickly and have it so that if those decisions are wrong, they are not catastrophic. That is a skill that leads to high velocity in any organization.
You alluded to the fact that one of your areas you'd love to hit the snooze button on is this deep alarmist AI view, where there's a lot of leaders who are making a fuss about how this is the end of jobs in this space or whatever it might be, which is causing a lot of anxiety across functions, especially those that might be more vocally mentioned, like entry level engineering jobs, whatever it might be. How do you navigate that as a general manager leading all these different functions? How do you tailor your messaging on the topic to the different functions to allay that anxiety?
Yeah, great question. I tend to be very transparent and open with folks, and people tend to be pretty smart. And when you tell them the truth about how something is bad, then it's much less unsettling for them than allowing their imagination to go wild. So I explained to folks a lot of the delays and a lot of the challenge in hiring entry level folks right now is not that, oh, we have computers that just do entry level things. It is a lot of it is a cost issue across the entire industry. All tech companies are essentially in the same industry. We all take engineering talent and other types of talent and turn it into free cash flow. That's the business that we're in. And that has to happen in a way that is profitable, meaning our expenses cannot exceed our costs, or at least not for indefinitely. And so if your expenses increase rapidly, then your margin goes down, right? No one likes their margin to go down. So if one category of expenses rises quickly, another category of expenses needs to come down to keep things in balance. And right now, everyone's infrastructure costs are going up because this is the most inefficient, the most expensive that AI training and AI inference is ever going to be. We just get better and better at it, and we drive that cost down. That cost has come down a lot in the past couple of years. It has not come down enough. And so, because AI training and AI inference are still so expensive, it means that other big expense categories like payroll, right, have to come down to keep expenses from rising too quickly. So this is a dynamic that's going on. Do we expect this dynamic to be permanent? I don't think so. I don't think this dynamic is going to be permanent, but I think it is going to be effectively permanent for someone who is graduating college right now, because it doesn't matter if it lasts 2 years or 5 years or 8 years. What matters is, hey, I have my Berkeley degree in this hand, my knapsack in this hand, and I need a job. I need to work somewhere. So how do I address that? There's another challenge though with that I think is something that I'm actually more concerned about, and it's not the entry level folks. It is the people who are early career going to later career. And one of the things that folks don't realize is the incredible power of mentoring junior people to increase your skill. The way I explain this is, when you have a college freshman and they take a data structures and algorithms class, they get an A in the class and you ask them, do you know this material well? They think, oh yeah, I'm an expert. I got an A on all the homeworks. I got an A on the midterms and the final. I'm nice with it. Uh, but then their sophomore year, you ask them, hey, do you want to grade homeworks for the freshman class? And, pay you, right? Hey, $15 an hour, $15 an hour, right? And what happens is quite amazing. When they grade that freshman homework, the homeworks that they did themselves the year before, like their brain looked at each problem, there are 5 or 6 ways to solve it. Their brain tends to always go to one of those, and it's correct, and they go through, they don't make any mistakes, they get it right. But when you grade homeworks for the whole class, you see, oh my gosh, there's this whole, oh, that's an interesting approach. I hadn't thought of that. This student just got confused. Oh, this one just got careless and made a mistake. Wow, a lot of kids make the same mistake. And you gain an encyclopedic knowledge of the space. So that student learns more from grading homeworks their sophomore year than they did taking the class and getting it their freshman year. The same thing happens when you mentor and you ramp people up. Someone comes and joins Google and is doing business development after doing business development for 2 years at Apple. Oh, here's how we do it. Here's how we do this. Here's what our process is. Here's for this. And you help ramp that person up. You learn it's impossible to ramp people up and not learn more, not just about how BD happens when you're working, but how it happens, what the general nature of business development in tech is. And one of the things that I see with the slowdown of hiring of entry level people is it's hard for me to give my early career people the people to mentor. That's another challenge that I see. And that's one of the reasons that I encourage folks to do some career switching. So folks who are PMs who want to be engineers, folks who are TPMs who want to be UX, because that is how within companies you can create some of these opportunities to mentor and some of these opportunities to stretch your skills if you're on the mentee side. And so that's another hidden aspect of the challenge of slowdown of hiring caused by AI that I think is impacting our industry.
I love that analogy of shifting from a doing mindset to a teaching mindset and how that can open your educational perspective. And to what you were saying, I'm curious when you get people on across your team, skip levels or managers who are coming to you who are nervous about their skills becoming redundant or their jobs being impacted. What other skills, mentoring is something you mentioned, but what else do you turn them towards as areas of focus or skills to better future proof themselves as they think about the next few years and how AI is developing?
Yeah, so there are a lot of things that AI can't do. The number of things that AI can't do, it's changing and it's shrinking. But fundamentally, a lot of what we talk about when you say AI these days is transformers and large language models. There are entire categories of problems that large language models struggle with, and a lot of those have to do with interpersonal relationships and working cross functionally. So as an engineer, when it's like, what skills should I learn? Right? Learning about negotiating. And engineers, I never negotiate. I don't need negotiation. Yeah, yeah, you do. Remember that team who didn't want to do this thing? They were like, it's not in our OKRs or whatever. We don't have it. And then you talk to them and then, yeah, well, we said we'd do this for oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's all negotiating, right? How to collaborate, how to work with people. This is something that human beings do with other human beings well. And we call it soft skills, which I don't really like the term because it makes it sound like there isn't a science and a practice to understand how to work with someone else and how to collaborate with someone and how to find the common ground. It's a learnable skill, and I encourage folks to pick that up because that is something that is going to be increasingly important. The other thing I explained to software engineers is I was old enough used to make punch cards and then assembly, and then we wrote higher order languages, and we write software, but software is not human beings telling computers what to do. Software is human beings communicating with other human beings about what we think we want the machine to do. And the machine doesn't read Plaza, it doesn't read Python or whatever. It turns it into machine code and it executes that. And now we're at a point where a prompt or a set of instructions to computers are non-deterministic requests of what we think we want the computer to do. Now, the level of determinism of those requests, the level of reproducibility is increasing. And so that specification, that ability to specify what you want is something that is a valuable skill. Again, it's human to human communication. That's something that I think that that you'll be able to take with you.
Love it. Yeah, it can definitely attest to the word soft skills or that framing is not a good summary of how much great work has been done by various people on the science of negotiation. And I'm curious, you've been working in machine learning and building machine learning services and tools for longer than most. What excites you the most? Like what keeps you going in your role?
What gets me excited is the opportunity to be helpful and the opportunity to be useful to creative people. My favorite interview question right now is, do you like creative people? You'd be surprised at the number of the range of
There's
answers
some
that
no's.
they don't know they're saying no, but the words are definitely saying no.
I see. Yeah, interesting.
So I'm really excited about the opportunity to be helpful and to use some new things, but also some old techniques. So it used to be if a musician wanted to make some music and needed to clear a sample, it was a very painful process. Or if you wanted to record some audio and you needed a drummer, you put an ad in the newspaper and hopefully someone showed up not too drunk to play the drums, right? But then you had software like FL Studio came out and there were drum loops and you could do that and they had samples that you could access right from there. And there were musicians who were like, "Hey, have you heard of this musician?" "No." "Well, they're the number one rapper in the country." "And yeah, why are you telling me this?" "Well, they sampled your song." "My hit song?" "No, no, no, something from your back catalog." Anyway, here's a royalty check for you, right? Because your work has been included in someone else's work. Right? There are opportunities for us to use AI in a constructive way, in an efficient way that helps people and helps creative people exist and earn a living and keep doing creative work and be able to do what they want to do as opposed to having to take a job and then do their creative work on the weekends. I hear a lot about how Hollywood is having struggles and how there are fewer jobs and all the rest of this. Recently had a visit to LA and visited a studio where they're opening a lot more jobs. They hired 800 people across the LA area. They're moving in to make more films, not AI films, human films, people walking around with cameras, actors, right? Filming drama shorts, right? And I'm like thrilled that we have an opportunity to support the creative industry and help them produce content out in the real world. Now, some things that people know about large language models, some people call it sparkling autocomplete for for transformers. And so I can tell people Mary had a little lamb, right? Miss Mary Mac 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 all dressed in black, 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 right? So what we can do is but the machines, they don't even know they're looking at letters. For them, they're just symbols. I can look at symbols for anything. I can look at symbols for shows that people watch, for songs that they listen to, and I can predict what piece of content are you going to love? What movie are you going to really enjoy? And you can use that to help users find the next piece of content that they're really going to love, the next creative work, the next book from an author that they didn't even know existed. You don't have to use AI to write the book. You can use it to help users find books written by other human beings that they really love. So I love things like that. Like this is the type of thing that our team gets to work on. We get to help connect creative people and app developers with people who are looking to find something to read, find something to watch, find something to play, find something to get into. And I like that much more than gee, I hope this drives us to a position where we need to have basic income or everything's going to be terrible. I just find utopia much better than dystopia.
That's a beautiful note to end on, Mecca, and I love that that vision of helping creators do more creating and making more content for people who want it that is easier to find in more niches. I'm excited. I know that's a big part of your mission and the team's mission, and I can't wait to see what you will continue to build. Thank you so much again for being here, for sharing your wisdom, your insight on leadership during this time, and being a GM. I'm excited to continue the conversation next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Today, my guest on the Wake Up is Mekka Okereke. Today on the Wake Up, my guest is Mekka